Hi everyone, welcome to Maximum Attack Rallying and your Thursday dose of rallying chit chat. Rather unusual things are happening this week, not just that I'm recording this in the evening under artificial light, which feels a bit weird, though I suspect you don't care about that. More importantly though, the WRC has found itself featured on Sky News. Now it's not very often that happens, but it made it into their business section because as part of this ongoing story in the background of the sale of the commercial rights to the championship, it has been reported that Swedish equity company EQT Partners is apparently the leading party in the race to buy out the commercial rights to the championship from the current WRC promoter, which is based in Germany. That is part owned by Red Bull and a company called KW25, which is a German investment firm. So, in case you missed it, it came out some time ago that the promoter is looking to sell the rights and that JP Morgan were appointed as the company to oversee that sale. Apparently, the WRC promotion rights have been valued at almost £500 million, which is just under 600 million euros, so a pretty substantial firm. We don't know when the sale is going to go through. We don't know if this EQT Capital company are going to be the ones that win the bid. We don't really know who else is interested, but it looks like things are moving towards a sale, which could have potentially big consequences for the WRC going forward. In terms of who EQT are, you may not have heard of them because I certainly haven't, but they do seem to have some interest in sports. So Sky reported that they did put in a bid for the commercial rights for the German Bundesliga football league a couple of years ago. So they obviously have some interest in getting into sporting things, but obviously at this stage we don't know whether they're going to win, as I said, and we don't really know what would happen if they did or if anyone else did. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in that respect. However, it is worthy of asking a question, isn't it? Whoever wins the bid, what should happen? What should we expect from our new promoter? The first thing we should expect is that they go to the Maximum Attack Rallying merch store and buy some merchandise, which is exactly what you should do. So if you haven't looked on there before, there are many things, t-shirts and hats and things for you to have a look at. Go and check it out. It would be very, very helpful for me in bringing you more lovely content. But let us get to the main question. So what would we like to see? It's a big one, isn't it? I think we're at a very critical time for the WRC and for rallying more generally, and also for the ERC, which is part of this arrangement, I should have said at the top. What would I like to see? Well, there are a few things. I think at the very top of the list is regulations. We just have to see some stability. If you have followed me for any length of time, you will know that I am very anti-Rally 1 and anti-Space Frame, and I would like to see us move towards Rally 2 cars for the top of the WRC. Regardless of my feelings though, I think what needs to happen at this stage is we need some clear guidance. We need to pick a direction. We need the new promoter to sit down with the FIA and, crucially, not just with existing teams but also with other manufacturers, and actually just talk about what they want. You know, what would attract these manufacturers that aren't in the WRC right now? What would bring them in? You know, I think that is the conversation that we need to be having. It's all well and good saying that we're going to have a space frame €360,000 car with a Rally 2 engine or whatever they're planning, but is that actually relevant to other manufacturers? You know, with Hyundai potentially on the brink of leaving, we need to be talking to other brands out there, you know, the companies that are competing in the lower levels, Stellantis, Peugeot, Renault, etc. But also, you know, your other manufacturers, your Mitsubishis or your I don't know, I can't think of any other manufacturers right now. My mind's gone blank. I don't know, BMW, Audi, Schengen, BYD. There's hundreds and hundreds of companies around the world, isn't it? And we need to be talking to them to find out what they want and what would bring them in. So that is the first conversation that they need to have, in my view. There are other things, of course. I think social media is a very important one. If you follow Hyundai on socials, which I suspect you probably do, you will see they do lots of little fun videos, light-hearted content, and I think we need to see more of that, and we need to see the promoter doing that if we want to enthuse young people about the sport, because I think the demographic for rallying is a bit older. If we want to get young people involved, we have to connect with them, and that is going to be done through social media, isn't it? Through especially platforms like TikTok, which is very much tailored to a younger audience. We need to find fun, engaging, short-form content to attract them in, and the place we need to attract them to is, of course, Rally TV, and I think there are several improvements we could make there. I think one of the top things I would like to see is just a bit more engagement in terms of how we interact with the crews. I think the stage end interviews have become a little bit stale. The questions that are being asked are not giving us insightful answers. And for me, couple that with the media zones, it's all just become a bit too PR led and not really very engaging. The drivers seem to be giving quite rehearsed answers. We're not seeing probing questions from the from the media team, so I think we just need to see a bit more somehow. I'd like to see some more challenging questions, and I'd like to see the format change. So stage end interviews are fine if the questions are good, but I think the media zone for me isn't working. I would actually just have it a bit more casual, just let the journalists roam around a bit, cut down the tape that stops people getting into the service area so much, so we get the sort of on-the-fly interviews. If you look at what Dirtfish do, for example, with their morning interviews and their recce interviews, they are so much more relaxed because it catches the drivers at a different moment, and they're not wearing the PR hat, so they can speak a bit more freely. And I think we need to see more of that from the promoters' content. I think you could maybe even argue that perhaps that content should be farmed out, so the promoter isn't producing it, but they're putting the footage out, and maybe other people are conducting those interviews and having a bit more freedom to use the media and bring in more independent sources. So there are definitely some conversations to have there. I think I would also like to see on the Rally TV side a bit more in depth. If you look at the type of person that's going to pay to watch rallying and pay for a Rally TV subscription, the chances are they are a pretty hardcore fan, they're pretty enthusiastic, they know their stuff, and I don't think the Rally TV coverage always reflects that. For me, watching it as someone who's been involved in the sport for a long time, I kind of find myself thinking, well, where's the in-depth, where's the more detailed technical stuff and the more detailed interviews? I think it feels like there's a bit of a misalignment in that the content is almost aimed at someone who doesn't have a big knowledge of the sport, but it's behind a paywall, so the chances are most people who are watching do have in-depth knowledge of the sport, so that doesn't quite seem to align. So I'd like to see them go a bit more in-depth with some of the technical features, look at a bit more detail at the cars and what's happening in the tyres. And where does that come from? Where does that more in-depth, critical, detailed, insightful analysis come from? It has to come from experts, doesn't it? And I think one of the big things that's lacking in the Rally TV coverage for me is there aren't enough former drivers or team bosses or mechanics. We're not getting that insight. Yes, Mads Osberg and people occasionally appear, but I think for me, if you've got two people in the commentary box, one of them should always be an ex-driver. And it seems mind-blowing to me that we can't find a couple of drivers that are willing to do that. So I think there have been some steps. I think the way things that have changed over the last year or so have made it better. I think Mike Chen has made it a bit better. Obviously, he's got some experience behind the wheel, albeit as an enthusiastic amateur. But I do think what we really need, if you look at F1, football, they always have pundits which have been there and done it, driven, played, whatever. And I think WRC is really lacking that in its coverage. The biggest thing, however, the biggest top major, biggest, massivest, most important change that they could possibly make, though, and that the new promoter, whoever it may be, has to listen to me about. They have to listen to me. They have to watch this video and listen. They have to make more of the content free. I just talked for the last few minutes, didn't I, about how we've got coverage behind a paywall, and I get it. I'm not against the idea of having a subscription model, provided that content is of a quality to meet the expectations of those people. But ultimately, if you want more eyes on the sport, you need more free content. And right now, I do not think we are doing enough. If you look at YouTube, we've got 3-minute highlights videos at the end of each day. That is not enough. That is just, for me, that is not nearly enough. Yes, there's free highlights on TV. What's it, an hour's highlight show in the UK, isn't it? A couple of weeks after each event or a week after each event. Again, it's quite wishy-washy. There's not the level of depth that I'd like to see that you would get in some other sports. And when you look at what other forms of motorsport are doing, more and more motorsport is becoming free to air. They are streaming races for free on YouTube. And I think that is something that the WRC has to start looking at. You know, if you want more eyes on rallying, if you want to grow the sport, if you want to bring people in, you have to have more free content, and it has to be more than just little highlights reels that aren't, I don't know, for me they don't add enough. So I would say that what we need is at least one stage every day should be streamed on YouTube for free. The power stage should be on YouTube for free. I know Shakedown is free on YouTube, but you know, why not have 1 or 2 stages from Friday and 1 or 2 stages from Saturday? Just stream them for free. That is how you're going to attract people. If you put out a good free product for 1 stage per day on YouTube, you might get more people subscribing to Rally TV, because as it stands right now, a lot of people I know, very hardcore, dedicated rally fans, are actually cancelling their subscriptions to Rally TV. So for me, I think the biggest shift is more free content. If we want more people to watch rallying to be more popular, therefore offer more value to manufacturers, to bring more manufacturers back in, going back to my first thing on the list, you need eyes on it, don't you? And I think if we get a big audience on YouTube watching the power stage, then maybe more manufacturers would come back. So those are my thoughts. Now, as always, I want to throw the doors open for you guys. What do you think? What would you like to see from the next promoter, whoever it may be? Do let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I will leave it there. As always, make sure you like and subscribe and follow me on socials and all that other stuff that I have to say. And I will see you again next time.